Carol Burnett has long been known as America's comedy sweetheart, the woman who could make millions laugh with a single raised eyebrow, a twirl in a curtain dress, or a perfectly timed joke. But behind her laughter, there's a private side few ever knew. Burnett, the icon of grace and wit, spent decades smiling through pain, betrayal, and humiliation from some of Hollywood's most powerful figures. And according to friends and colleagues close to her, she never forgot that, in fact, she quietly kept a mental list, a list of people she would never work with again. People she believed had crossed a line so deeply that forgiveness was impossible. Today, we're going to reveal that list. These are the 5 stars Carol Burnett allegedly blacklisted forever, and the shocking stories behind why. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. 1. Joe Hamilton, the husband who broke her heart and her trust. Before Carol Burnett became a legend, she was a young comedian struggling to make it in New York City. Then she met Joe Hamilton, a charming television producer who helped shape the Carol Burnett show into a household name. Together, they seemed unstoppable, a creative power couple ruling 1970s television. But behind the laughter, their marriage was unraveling. Hamilton, according to several accounts, struggled with infidelity and control. Former crew members have claimed that Hamilton often treated Burnett not as a partner, but as property, inserting himself into every creative decision, and even taking credit for her ideas. When Burnett finally decided to divorce him, things got ugly. Court documents later revealed bitter disputes over money and custody of their children. But what hurt Burnett most wasn't financial, it was emotional. Hamilton's alleged affair with a younger production assistant became public gossip, humiliating her in front of the industry she had helped build. For Burnett, this wasn't just betrayal, it was the collapse of a shared dream. Even after their divorce, Hamilton reportedly tried to control aspects of her career, using his network influence to undermine her projects. Though Burnett kept her dignity in public, those close to her say she made one private vow: she would never again allow Joe Hamilton or anyone like him to dictate her life. Joe Hamilton's name became the first on Carol Burnett's unspoken blacklist, not out of hatred, but as a painful reminder that even love can turn poisonous when power gets involved. 2. Harvey Korman, the comedy partner who turned on her. For millions of fans, the Carol Burnett show was defined by its hilarious duo, Carol Burnett and Harvey Korman. Their chemistry was magic, her goofy warmth, his deadpan arrogance. Together, they made sketch comedy history. But behind the scenes, that magic often came at a cost. Korman, known for his perfectionism, was sometimes cruel when things didn't go his way. Crew members from the show have recalled moments when Korman would storm off set, complain about scripts, or belittle junior performers. Burnett, ever the diplomat, often covered for him, making jokes, soothing tensions, and keeping the show rolling. But over time, his arrogance grew harder to ignore. According to one longtime staff writer, Burnett once had to pull Korman aside after he reduced a young guest actress to tears. She told him bluntly, "If you can't treat my people with respect, you can leave." And he did, briefly. Korman quit the show for a season, hoping she'd beg him to come back. Instead, Burnett replaced him with new talent and carried on. When Korman returned, the balance of power had shifted. Carol Burnett had proven she didn't need him to succeed. Still, their friendship never fully healed. Even years later, Burnett admitted in interviews that while she respected Korman's genius, his ego had left scars. He became another silent name on her internal blacklist, a reminder that talent is no excuse for cruelty. 3. Marlon Brando, the legend who humiliated her in public. Few Hollywood stars were more revered or more volatile than Marlon Brando. By the time Carol Burnett met him, he was already a myth, moody, magnetic, and utterly unpredictable. Burnett admired him deeply. She once called him a force of nature. But one night in the late 1970s, that admiration turned into one of the most humiliating moments of her career. According to multiple eyewitness accounts from a charity gala, Burnett had been invited to present Brando with an honorary award. During her introduction, she told a few lighthearted jokes about his method acting, gentle, friendly humor. But Brando didn't take it that way. When he came on stage, instead of thanking her, Brando allegedly launched into a rambling speech mocking Burnett's appearance and her silly little skits. The audience, stunned, laughed awkwardly, thinking it was part of the act. But Burnett's expression said it wasn't. She finished the ceremony gracefully, but witnesses said she left the event in tears. For a woman who had endured decades of sexism in Hollywood, Brando's cruelty felt like salt in an old wound. He wasn't just insulting her, he was trivializing every woman who'd fought to be taken seriously in comedy. Later, when asked about Brando, Burnett simply said he was brilliant and deeply unkind. She never spoke to him again. Marlon Brando's name was etched onto the list, not just for what he did to her personally, but for what he represented. The arrogance of a man who believed greatness gave him the right to humiliate others. For Cary Grant, the idol who betrayed her trust, in the golden age of Hollywood, Cary Grant was the ultimate gentleman, suave, witty, and adored by everyone who met him. Carol Burnett idolized him long before she ever met him. When she finally did, she was overwhelmed, and he seemed genuinely kind. At first, during the late 1960s, Grant appeared as a guest on one of Burnett's variety specials. Their chemistry on screen was effortless, and the press hailed them as a dream pairing. But off-camera, the mood was different. According to a former CBS publicist, Burnett later discovered that Grant had been privately mocking her behind her back, calling her a nice clown but no lady. It wasn't just gossip. She learned he'd repeated the same remark to several executives, even suggesting that she wasn't sophisticated enough for the A-list. Those words hurt more than she expected. Burnett had spent years battling stereotypes that women comedians couldn't be elegant, that they had to choose between being funny and being respected. To hear it from one of her childhood heroes was devastating. In later years, Burnett forgave many who wronged her, but not Cary Grant. She once remarked, "He was everything I thought a gentleman was supposed to be, until he wasn't." Grant's name joined the list, a quiet reminder that even the people we look up to most can disappoint us when their pride outweighs their kindness. 5. Lorne Michaels, the gatekeeper who shut her out. The final name on Carol Burnett's alleged blacklist isn't a movie star, but a power player who reshaped television comedy. Lorne Michaels, the creator of Saturday Night Live. In the late 1970s, as SNL rose to fame, Burnett's own variety show was winding down. She reached out to Michaels several times, hoping to appear as a guest host, not to revive her career, but to pass the torch to a new generation of comics she admired. But, according to Burnett's close associates, Michaels repeatedly declined. Not only that, he reportedly told NBC executives that Burnett's brand of humor was outdated, too sentimental, and not edgy enough for SNL's audience. It wasn't just rejection, it was dismissal. T.O. Burnett, who had broken every barrier for women in sketch comedy, this felt like erasure. She had paved the very road SNL was driving on, and now its architect was pretending she didn't matter. Years later, Michaels would publicly praise Burnett in interviews, calling her a pioneer. But by then, the damage was done. She'd already felt the sting of being shut out from the house she helped build. Lorne Michaels' name went on her list not because of cruelty or scandal, but because of cold disregard. And sometimes that kind of indifference cuts deeper than open hostility. When you look at these 5 names, Hamilton, Corman, Brando, Grant, and Michaels, a pattern emerges. They weren't random enemies. They were men who, in different ways, used power to make Carol Burnett feel small. And yet, she never lashed out publicly. She never published a tell-all book, never weaponized gossip, never tried to ruin reputations. Instead, she built boundaries quietly, firmly. Her blacklist wasn't revenge, it was self-preservation. For Carol Burnett, forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant moving forward without carrying other people's poison. Over the years, she would face even greater trials, lawsuits, personal loss, the tragic death of her daughter, and the constant challenge of aging in an industry that worships youth. But through it all, she remained what she always was, graceful, dignified, and brave enough to keep smiling. When asked late in life what sustained her through the betrayals and heartbreak, Burnett said something remarkable. "You can't control how people treat you, but you can control whether you let it make you bitter." Maybe that's why she never revealed her blacklist publicly, because even if she couldn't forgive everyone on it, she refused to let them define her. And perhaps that's the real secret behind her lasting legacy. Not her talent, not her fame, but her strength. Carol Burnett laughed through pain, turned humiliation into art, and built a career that outlasted all 5 of the names on her list. In the end, the people who tried to break her only proved how unbreakable she truly was.